I'm glad that you are come for this wonderful presentation on PCI DSS, and this time in our second PCI session we have picked up a very interesting topic, actually very pertinent for our times, which is on log management. Okay, so first things first, what are logs? Now this is extremely important that I've picked this up as to what are the log functionality. That is, what do you constitute as logs? Many people think have different perceptions with regards to what could be logs. So every system, you have to understand, every system on the network generates logs of some type or the other. It could be your servers, routers, switches, firewalls. It could be your biometric devices. It could be even your CCTV generates logs of one type of the other. Your backups, everything, your antivirus, mail, spam, everything generates logs in some type or the other. Now, Microsoft generates Microsoft event logs, and with Unix-based system have Unix-based, syslog server standard for log generation and log saving. Now, why log management? Like, why are we speaking about log management even in PCI DSS? I remember the first time we had done PCI, that was for a payment gateway. I think it was back in 2007, if I'm not mistaken. It's almost like 10 years back. And that time there was like PCI 1.1 something. And that time again, the most painful thing was log management, and we barely managed to scrape through the requirements at that time. So again, now it has become all the more important. Of course, it was important even at that time, but now because of the invasiveness of digitalization in our lives, it's become all the more important. So for me, when I'm doing an audit, it's the currency of compliance. So if you have to show that you're compliant to a particular requirement, logs is what I would like to see. Logs, or show me the records. For example, I'd simply say, okay, show me how many login failure attempts have happened over the past few days. And I would like to see the logs of your servers, of your applications, whatever be the case. So again, it's a mandatory requirement as far as many regulatory requirements, Sarbanes-Oxley, Basel II, HIPAA, GLP, that's the Grime-Leach-Bliley Act, FISMA, PCI DSS, NISPOM. There are so many of them. Now, it also helps an organization to better manage their service level agreements, better for managers to understand how things work, better change control, regulatory compliance. And last but not the least, in the IT terminology, it's very, there's a term called as, cover your ass, so to say. So this is what it is. So this helps save your skin. So if you have, assuming that you have things in place, the logs will prove that things are happening in a digital manner, but since nothing in this world is 100% secure, things still happen because of a particular combination of events, but you did your best. Otherwise, in case of a forensic breach, you will be like, guilty until proven innocent. So this particular logs will help show that you actually have some things in place. Now, economics, let's take a brief account of what do you mean by what happens if there is a breach. Hypothetical merchant compromises only 10,000 accounts. If you do the maths, notifying clients almost like $300,000, fines and penalties $50,000 minimum. Increasing audit needs because your auditors will increase the charges for doing the audits because you're now a high-risk client. The fraud liability, again, $500,000. You're looking at a direct loss of at least $1 million for a 10,000 account series, but it comes nowhere near close to the phenomenal loss of reputation that you will have when a breach does happen. Now, so let's go ahead and see. Okay, I hear this quite often. That is, it doesn't apply to me. Okay, we are a small company or we are a growing company. I keep hearing this at all times. Or we are a private company and we are a public company. Everybody has some excuse or the other. But for public organization, that's not a choice. For US-based companies, it's the Sarbanes-Oxley Act. It's mandatory. For HIPAA, it's required, and there are so many local laws and regulations. For India, also, of course, it's not. It is required. It's not as serious as there in the US, but still the requirements do stand. For private organizations, again, benchmarking your own security initiatives. There is something called as, you must have heard it, when you go to your management for, okay, I need to spend $500,000 or maybe $100,000, small amount. Immediately the management will ask you, what is the purpose? You have already spent $1 million earlier. What was the outcome on that? Or if they have spent it, they would like to see, show me the outcome of the $1 million that you actually spent. Now, let me ask you, how do you show a return on security investment? Not ROI, that is a return on investment. I'm asking for ROSI, ROSI, return on security investment. So benchmarking your, so that's where the logs comes into place. How many breach attempts it stopped, what possibly infiltration could have happened, what possible data breaches were discovered, stopped, all those things makes a massive difference. Now again, preventing or minimizing loss of face to your organization in the event of a breach. So if you got things in place, you got something to go back to your management or to your or to your users or to your clients and say that, okay, we did our best, but happened. Now requirements under ISO. I know this session is about PCI DSS, but we have also said that it is required across all the standards. So I'm just showing you one slides each. So it's required as a part of section 404 identification, that is log and reporting of all users identities. It's required under section 501B, log and report on all systems containing customer information. Now again, there are so many reports on the right hand side. You can see there is computer account management, logon failures, Active Directory logons, local logons, object access, policy change, account management, everything. They need the logs. They need log management is the minimum that is required. Now again, the next thing is HIPAA, which is a very strong legislation that was passed in the United States, and even the government is taking it very seriously, as so many other rules. Again, it's required as a part of, here it talks about securing your personally identifiable information, PII. So again, it speaks about password aging, consolidated change logs, user privileges, information to detect, to determine the date and time of action, all those things. So again, logs, it comes back to logs. So it's required under HIPAA, under SOX, under FISMA, against you name it, it's there. Because that's the only way you can prove that you are following what is required of you. What about PCI DSS? Okay, now this is going to take time. So, but I'll still have to breeze through it because I just have a very short time schedule on my hands. Many companies feel, many people feel, when I speak to industry experts or industry people, they'll say, okay, we have requirements, that is log requirements are there as section 10. So that really speaks about log management. Well, that's not the case. Logging, log management, log analyzing is required as a part of almost all the control requirements, because how are you going to show that you're doing it? So I'm taking you through a few of them. Let me take you to the first one, that is install requirement 1. That is 1.1.1, install and maintain a firewall configuration. Now again, it speaks about a formal process of, this is PCI, all right? This is what you see over here is PCI. It's not like I have written this, all right? For approving and testing all network changes to firewall and router configuration. So again, under this, the log requirement is configuration changes has to be documented as a part of firewall messages. So what change was done by whom, when, all those things. So a paper trail is there as a part of change request, but it is also required as a part of your firewall logs. It's not required. I can say these are suggestions on how you can maintain compliance, because there are many companies that we see on a regular basis who take these things for granted, and the base minimum that is required is done. Like just a few days back, one of our clients was compromised and the logs were not there. So not there in the sense they had paid lakhs of rupees to some provider, and the log management was simply not happening. They had nothing in place. Anyway, coming to the next requirement, do not use vendor supplied defaults for system passwords. So now again it says implement only one primary function per server. So it is something like if a server is doing a DHCP function, it shouldn't become a Active Directory server also. So stuff like that. You cannot have a file and print server and an Active Directory on the same thing, or a database and an application server on the same thing, or an application and a web server on the same server. So it says that there has to be segregation of even of duties on server ways. So the question that comes up is, how are you going to prove a very critical point, that is somebody just before the audit, somebody stopped some services running just to show compliance to an auditor, or let's assume you are hacked and the hacker has managed to compromise your server, and then started some services so that he can do some more activities and then shut it down. If you don't have the logs which are also storing what services were enabled, disabled on a particular server or were available on a particular server at any point of time, how are you going to prove your compliance to this particular requirements or show your due diligence in case of a breach? Again, if you're a large company, you would also want to see that your people are doing a clear job on this. You got a few hundred servers going, how will you know what's happening where? How do you know that at the time of the auditor coming, just one day before, the team has not just disabled the few services just to maintain compliance? Requirement number 3, protect and store card holder data. Protect stored card holder data. Render PAN unreadable anywhere it is stored, which includes the logs. Now, we have seen this happen especially in merchants and who are using old systems. So by default, 64 is allowed. That is the first 6 numbers of the card number and the last 4 digits of the card number. If it is getting transmitted, it's not a violation. It doesn't come under PCI, so to say. But if for whichever reason, maybe for reconciliation or maybe your system is too old not to do the 64 masking, so in that case, you have to ensure that the logs are unreadable. We have seen non-compliances given to customers, or we have ourselves given it because those logs contained. It could even be a hard copy log. It could even be those, sheets of paper that is handed out to you at the point of sales at a merchant, where in olden days there used to be even the card number printed in entirety. Nowadays it is not there, but earlier it used to be. So if you're using legacy systems, this becomes an extremely important requirement. Again, antivirus, protect your systems from all malware and update your antivirus systems. That is requirement 5.2. Again, we need again the antiviruses to show antivirus logs to show that the logs have not failed and that the updates have not failed. All the systems are having the antiviruses. All those things, that's where the antivirus logs becomes extremely important in any sort of audit, whether it is ISO, whether it is PCI, FISMA, HIPAA, SOX, anywhere. Requirement number 6, develop and maintain secure system and applications. Develop internal and external software applications securely. Now, by default, nowadays, most of the applications have some logging system or the other, or not, or the other. But you have to ensure that those applications, that's where when we are assisting companies in finalizing, system requirements for the softwares, we ensure that those particular parameters are getting logged. For example, we have seen systems having the best of the logging functions, but in that case, it's not simply storing the IP addresses. It's storing everything, what the user has done, what is the username, who logged in, what time, date, everything, but the IP address is not there. Then what happens? So IP address is not stored, then it becomes a massive point, because in that case you have to go back to the DHCP server, assuming that the DHCP server is storing the relevant type of data. So it becomes a huge pain even for the customer in case of the client, or your company in case of a breach, or to prove diligence to an auditor. Requirement number 6 again, for public facing applications, address threats and vulnerabilities on an ongoing basis. Now again, this is one of the core requirements. Most of the web facing applications, when they get hacked, the first thing that is looked at is the logs. How are the logs being stored? How are the logs being sanitized? How are the logs being saved from unauthorized alterations? Requirement number 7, restrict access to cardholder data by business need to know. Limit access to system components and cardholder data only for those individuals whose job required such access. Now, logs can be used to demonstrate access to system components. Now, you've got a server where the card data is being stored. How do you know that only relevant people are having access to that particular, store of information which is there? And that is where, again, the logs becomes extremely important. Are you ensuring, this is one of the core requirements for PCI DSS also. When I'm doing an audit, that's one of the things that I will check. That is, how are you ensuring that, and prove it to me, not just how are you ensuring, because then the system administrator can make up really glorified stories of what is happening in the organization, which may not be the case. I'd like to say, show me how you're doing it, prove it to me how you're doing it. That's where the logs comes into place. I may simply go to a system, sit on the system which is not supposed to be accessing cardholder data, try to access the cardholder data and see if a log is triggered. So this becomes extremely important from the client's perspective. Requirement 8, assign all users a unique ID. Now, this goes without saying, anybody is getting hacked. There could be an excessive amount, again, unless the hacker already knows the user ID password. So unless there may be an excessive failed login attempt, a brute force, like we had one client who was brute force attack on RDP through the internet. So again, logs were missing, and they didn't have a monitoring system in place to even alert them that somebody was trying to brute force their RDP application. Requirement 10. Now this is where is a core domain for log management in PCI DSS. The entire domain is dedicated for PCI DSS log management and reporting. Now here it's very exhaustive. If you want, you can open up the standard and go through it. I just have a short amount of time, so I'm just breezing you through it. So first is implement audit trails to link access to systems. So again, log management is an essential tool in linking user access to system components. So again, which user is going where at what time, very, very important. So that's where the logs also comes into place for me to see, that is, are the users able to access only their screens and nobody else, and is everything getting logged appropriately. The next is track and monitor. Again, same requirement number 10. This is 10.2, 10.2.1.1. See, look over here. Implement automated audit trails. So it is not manual audit trails, it is automated audit trails. So it gets triggered by default. All individual users access to cardholder data, actions taken by individual with root admin access to all audit trails, invalid logical access attempts. Now again, this helps identifying who was doing what at what period of time. So if I'm doing a forensics or there is a real-time monitoring of the logs happening, this is almost like I cannot make do without it. Again, now this is a frequently asked question. Record at least the following audit trail entry for all system components. So the question that is asked is, what should be logged? That is a question. I can already see 1-2 questions of people asking already. Okay, I'll be answering your questions. But okay, and now I'm answering it now for you. So what logs, log entries have to be stored? There is user identification has to be stored, type of event, date and time, success or failure indication, origination of event, IP address by default. Identity, but it can even be somewhere else, like it originated from the US, UK, but you need to have an IP address somewhere. Now, if you are having a local access and there is a proxy server in between, which is only sending you a netted address where, it is giving you the internal IP addresses and the outside addresses are being hidden out, then you need to have some mechanism in place that even the public IP addresses from where the request originated is stored. Okay, requirement 10, again, time synchronization technologies. Now we were doing, I remember a very interesting incident, like we were doing forensics for a very, very reputed, real estate, one of the largest, that is, if not the largest. Anyway, so somebody had compromised their servers and they had called us in for doing the forensics on that. And, we were not getting anywhere because the timelines were simply not matching. And they said everything is in place, sync is happening, the Active Directory logs are being updated and stuff like that. And towards the end, we realized that the proxy server was not getting updated to the NTP, the rest of the systems was getting updated. The relevance of time stamping, it cannot be overestimated. Whether you're using an automated SIM system or a log management or even doing it manually, I don't know how, but let's assume you are. Without having a timestamp in place, you don't have the chronology of events happening, the entire logs becomes useless. Okay, track and monitor all network access, secure audit trails so they cannot be altered. Now, in case if there is a data breach and this thing goes to court, if it can be proven that the logs were not sanitized, that's one thing that I would like to say, then the logs almost becomes meaningless because you are not able to prove that those logs are secure. Secondly is that um, it's very important that when a hacker logs into any system, the first thing that he'll be doing is trying to cover his tracks. He'll delete all the logs. He'll stop systems that are doing the logging. He will, disable counters that are sending the audit data to a centralized audit server. So you need to have back-to-back controls, not just to protect your audit trails, but also to ensure that those things cannot be done. Now, the next thing is limit viewing. There is 10.5.1 limit viewing of audit trails on a need-to-know basis. Again, it has to be encrypted. So obviously, those who have the encryption key only, this is a requirement. Encrypted log messages, you can do it with this. First of all, encryption of log messages is not a mandate. Let me clarify. Encryption is not a mandate unless your logs contains card data. So if it is encrypted log messages, then it has to be viewed only by users who can be using, who has an encrypted the decryption key. So we say regardless, just encrypted so that first of all, you're maintaining sanity, that is sanitization of data. And secondly, you're ensuring that only it's a need to know basis. So only those who have the decryption key can see the audit trails. Unauthorized modification, again, it could be if there is an insider's job, you would want to change the timestamps, or you would want to do something wrong, that is change some sort of entry somewhere, the text somewhere, especially in a Unix based system. So that's where immediately, like in high risk environments, the logs are immediately shipped to offsite locations where they are written on drives where it cannot be monitored, it cannot be modified. We also say in high risk environments to use mutually authenticated certificates to prevent log injection attacks. You can use X.509 certificates for that. Backup, backup again is there. What if somebody hacks into your server, takes out the data and formats the entire thing? How do you, take care of that? That's where the prompt backup of audit trails is very important. Now, some companies take a shortcut and say that, okay, we're taking backups once a month or once something like that. Again, there is no mandate saying that it has to be done in real time or weekly or monthly. But believe me, if something goes wrong, the only thing that you'll be begging for is the logs. Again, for here it is very clear that is write logs for external facing technologies into central, secure, centralized. So again, for external devices, there is no a turnaround for you. It has to be saved to a centralized log server which is not local to the system. Review logs. Now, this is the pain area. Reviewing the logs to identify anomalies or suspicious activities. Now, many people feel that okay, they need to get this thing done in a straightforward manner, or maybe it should be done once a week, once a day. The logs needs to be monitored once a day, or once a week, or once a month, or whatever be the case. So there is no frequency that is given over here. That is, you need to see it on a weekly basis or a monthly basis or something like that. But the point is, it has to be done. It doesn't say that it has to be done manually. It can be done using an automated solution also. Again, just for the sake of the records, PCI DSS doesn't mandate an SIEM solution. For those of you who are not aware of how technologies works, a log management system just stores logs and gives you, for example, so many failed login attempts, and so many people have logged on or logged off, or encryption happened, not happened, and stuff like that. But if you need a system which will see that okay, somebody tried logging into the system, after 5 attempts he could log into the system, then he went to the application server, compromise the firewall, then he moved to the database. That is a correlation of attempts of events that is happening. That happens using an SIEM system only. So for high risk systems, that is always recommended, but review of logs have to be done. Again, there are two types of records that you need to keep. That is what logs are being kept where, and when are they being reviewed, and what is the outcome of the last review cycle. It means like, okay, show me the last time you received alert. So it's not like a review cycle like having every day, so show me the minutes of meeting or something like that. It simply means I as an auditor would simply be interested in saying, when was the last time you got an alert? Show me the alert, how it was received, and what you did about it. That's your evidence to an auditor. A retain audit trail. Again, this is a frequently asked question, how long the audit trail needs to maintain. So it is 3-year on-site minimum, 3 months, sorry, 3 months on-site minimum, and 9 months after that off-site is okay. So a total of 1 year is required. You cannot say, I'll do 1 month on-site and 11 months off-site. No, that's not done. 3 months in real time, that is the data has to be readily accessible to investigators. You cannot change it. You can have 12 months online, but a minimum of 3 months is required. You can only extend the time, you cannot decrease the time. What to expect? Now let's assume that you are planning to buy your own system or you're planning to outsource the system of log management. So I've just made some pointers as to what needs to be done. Collection and archiving. These are some of the points that you can look for. That is automated collection of the log files, supports Windows event logs. There is 2 types of events. That is, one is with XML and the other is without XML. So whether it supports both of them or not. Supports syslog, because most of the routers, switches and firewalls will be creating the logs in syslog only. Now collects all generated events. Now you may need to be very specific as to what events is your base minimum required, and again collects only certain types of events. That is, you may does the system allow you to configure that I only want this 1, 2, 3 events and nothing more. Otherwise your log storage requirements, log transmission requirements will go through the roof. Can export compression of log data. We always suggest this, otherwise it will run into hundreds of gigabytes within a few days depending on your systems. Email notification in case archiving fails, retry, last collected events, scheduled. So these are a few things that we say: log collection and log archiving. From the log consolidation series, we suggest always having a secure log aggregation and storage for Windows and Unix events. It could be in flat file, it could be in SQL. Very important that there is some logic for log normalization. You may end up with a huge amount of duplicate data, which will be against your objective of doing this. And automated compression. Now different formats, it could be syslog, SQL, MS Access, EVT. Now again, I would also suggest you one more thing, that is many a time, not many a time, a few times rather, but it will come on you even if you have decent amount of systems in your house. That is, you may need to write specialized connectors to pick up data from your systems and import it onto the log system. So does this system, does this SIEM or log management system allow you to do that? That's very important. Does it allow you the API? Does it give you the systems to be able to write your own connectors for importing logs? Monitoring should have out-of-the-box predefined reports, access to logs via browser. Again, report daily, weekly, monthly for defined data, custom reports. Supports from the alerts and notification. There should be a way of drill down and drill up. Provide a tree view of event data. Extensive filtering options. You may want and or to be in place to be able to arrive at a particular log that you're looking for. Log entry. Filtering and drill down, drill up is one of the key things that I always suggest for my clients. Okay, that brings me to the end of it. Now, if you have any queries, please do shoot it across to me. I have gone slightly over the time, and so ensure that you just punch it in fast, otherwise I'll have to close out this session. Hello? Okay. Now I've received one question. One sec. Okay. Very interesting question. Let me read it out for you. For how long CCTV logs have to be stored in the data center? Does it require separate caging in the data center? Now, okay, let me break it up. The first part, the logging requirements are the same. 3 months on, 9 months off. That doesn't change. Now, required separate caging, we would always suggest that, because if somebody is breaking into, like we have done PCI DSS for many, payment gateways, and what do you always suggest is, if you're printing cards, if you're doing something like a printing of cards and stuff, always ensure that the DVR box where the logs are written are not local to the place where you are, where the logs are actually being captured. So the CCTV, so somebody breaks into your system and also breaks into your location and also decams and leaves with your DVR box which contains the CCTV logs. That is very silly, and we have seen it happen from companies who want to save a few rupees here and there on cabling costs. That is nonsense. So please, take that into consideration. You may save a few rupees here and there on cabling cost, but it's not worth it. It's not worth it. If any auditor comes, he knows what he's talking about. That's the first thing. I've literally seen at one place, the CCTV box, CCTV is above and the DVR box is right below it. Anyway, so somebody can simply come and shut off the DVR box. So if it is kept separately, then it better be, say, cage it so that nobody can touch it. But again, if it is in the same room, if you cage it, depends on the determination of the hacker, of the person who's broken into your premises. If he has a tenacity to break into your physical premises, how much time do you think he will take to break your cage? It just requires a long crowbar, a long, length of metal and a twist, and everything just snaps open. So we always suggest that never store the CCTV logs anywhere close to the place where the logging is being done. Anyway, I have come to the end of it. I've got a few more questions, but I'd like to close with one quick pointer. That is, a few days back, as I said, one of our clients, got hacked, and what I can say to you is that there are many, so-called, log management system providers. What they do simply is that they say that they are SIEM providers and they are providing you only things that is required for PCI certification only. So okay, it is being stored and it is being reviewed as and when possible. But actually speaking, when it will not raise any alerts to you, it will not even tell you that a system has been hacked or a ransomware has been implanted. Nothing. What is the point? You're giving them a few $1,000s every month. What did you get as an outcome? Rather spend some more, do a proper POC as to what is the reporting that you're getting, and then get into log management, especially with an outsider. Now there are many systems in place. That is HP ArcSight is there. There is another question, so I'll just quickly take it. There is HP ArcSight, IBM QRadar is there. There is Alien Vault. Alien Vault again has its own free version and paid version. Depends on your cleanliness of hands with open source systems. So we have seen some people being able to do it and some people not being able to do it, but that's the case even with paid systems like HP ArcSight and IBM QRadar. Many companies feel that simply buying a QRadar or an ArcSight means that everything will be in place. No, it doesn't happen. It's like almost like a 1 year process that is required, or 6 months is minimum that we have seen for rolling out SIEM or sophisticated log management system and reporting in place. Okay, that is our coordinates. Feel free. I'll still answer your questions after the show. Post this also if you have any queries. Feel free to drop us a line, and we are there for you. Thank you for being such a great audience. Have a wonderful day ahead. Thank you.